Это вот эти все пидоры вот сложили оружие и просто вот, просто тысячи пидорасы ебаные. Сирийцы нахуй. Ублюдки ебучие. Просто. Сколько мы еще проехали, да, блядь? Да здесь нихуя не 1000, блядь. Ебаный в лоб. Вот пидорасы ебаные. Бегут нахуй. А мы должны за этих пидорасов нахуй здесь страдать, блядь. Посмотрите, просто, блядь. Просто пиздец, ублюдки ебаные. Сука, нахуй. А могли, блядь, защищать свою родину, блядь. Вот вы ебаные, просто. Ну сколько? Здесь, наверное, 5000, наверное, да, блядь?
Мне кажется, да.
Смотри, смотри, колонна не кончается этих ублюдков.
Поболее, наверное, даже.
Сука, бросили оружие, блядь. Яйца свои бросили. Это все идут шлюхи ебаные.
Километров 5 точно.
Ты посмотри, она не кончается, блядь. Пятихатки ебаные. Да. Как говорится, да пребудет с нами сила, а этим пидорасам дорогу в ад нахуй. Охуеть, мурази ебаные.
UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy called ousted Syrian President Bashar Assad the rat of Damascus in a statement to the House of Commons on Monday. Assad was a drug dealer funding his regime through captagon and illicit finance. And we said no, because he was never, ever going to change. There were those who used to call Assad the Lion of Damascus. Now we see the reality. Assad is the rat of Damascus, fleeing to Moscow with his tail between his legs. How fitting he should end up there, he said in his address. Half a century of rule by the Assad family in Syria crumbled on Sunday after insurgents burst out of a rebel-held enclave and converged on the capital, Damascus, taking city after city in a matter of days. Opposition forces swept across the country and entered Damascus with little or no resistance as the Syrian army melted away. President Bashar Assad, Syria's ruler for 24 years succeeding his father, Hafez Assad, fled the country. Russian state media reported that he was in Moscow. Streams of refugees are crossing back into Syria from neighboring countries, hoping for a more peaceful future. The rebels face the daunting task of healing bitter divisions in a country still split among armed factions.
And some in this House asked whether we would re-engage with Assad. His Russian and Iranian allies have long championed him. Last year, he returned to the Arab League, and increasingly other governments were also starting to step up their presence in Damascus. And Deputy Speaker, this government chose not to re-engage. We said no, because Assad is a monster. We said no because Assad was a dictator whose sole interest was his wealth and his power. And we said no because Assad is a criminal who defied all laws and norms to use chemical weapons against the Syrian people. We said no because Assad is a butcher with the blood of countless innocents on his hands. And we said no because Assad was a drug dealer funding his regime through captagon and illicit finance. And we said no because he was never, ever going to change. There were those who used to call Assad the Lion of Damascus. Now we see the reality. Assad is the rat of Damascus, fleeing to Moscow with his tail between his legs. How fitting he should end up there. We see streets of Syrians cheering his demise, tearing down his statues, reuniting with loved ones who have been disappeared. We have long hoped to see him gone and welcome the opportunity this brings for the people of Syria. Assad's demise is not just a humiliation to him and his henchmen, it is a humiliation for Russia and Iran. This House will know that the group whose offensive first pushed back the regime Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS as it's now being called, are also a prescribed terrorist organisation in the UK as an alias of Al-Qaeda. That should rightly make us cautious. Thus far, HTS has offered reassurances to minorities in Aleppo, Hama and Damascus. They have also committed to cooperating with the international community over monitoring chemical weapons. We will judge ATS by their actions, monitoring closely how they and other parties to this conflict treat all civilians in areas they control. The UK and our allies have spent over a decade combating terrorism in Syria. Daesh remains one of the most significant terrorist threats to the UK, our allies and our interests overseas. We take seriously our duty as government to protect the public from this and other terrorist threats. The humanitarian situation in Syria is dire, with almost 17 million people in need. Millions are refugees, largely still in neighbouring Turkey, Lebanon and Jordan. Seeing so many start to return to Syria is a positive sign for their hopes for a better future now that Assad is gone. But a lot depends on what happens now. This flow into Syria could quickly become a flow back out and potentially increase the numbers using dangerous illegal migration routes to continental Europe and the United Kingdom. Syria has also proven a hotbed of extremism.
A new kind of warfare is rapidly developing in the skies over Ukraine. Drones are increasingly being used to attack not armored vehicles or combat positions, but other drones, writes Business Insider. Combat footage from Ukraine has repeatedly captured clashes where cheap drones crash into other drones, an approach that has become a cost-effective air defense option that both Ukrainian and Russian forces are actively using. Mikhailo Fedorov, Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, wrote on Telegram, Ukraine is looking for interceptor drones to destroy Russian surveillance assets, forward eyes for attack drones, and Russian artillery without wasting air defense assets. Natalia Kushneskaya, a representative of the Ukrainian defense industry, said that the use of drones in such missions marks the emergence of a completely new segment of modern warfare, drone combat. Evolution of tactics. Drones have become the dominant weapon of war in Ukraine, used for land, sea, and air operations. From cheap models with first-person view, FPV for precision attacks, to large systems for intelligence gathering. Over time, drones are increasingly used in the air defense role, shooting down enemy UAVs. Such air battles sometimes resemble historical fighter clashes. In August, a company that makes FPV drones reported that their modified drones had destroyed 100 Russian drones. The group, Wild Hornets, shared footage of the successful interceptions. Kushneskaya added, interceptor drones have become one of the innovations of this war. The tactic makes it difficult for the Russians to fly drones deep behind enemy lines and gather the intelligence needed to launch missile attacks, while giving Ukrainian forces greater flexibility in military operations. Ukraine was the first to use drones to intercept Russian reconnaissance UAVs, but Moscow quickly adapted. Russia began equipping its drones with electronic warfare systems to defend themselves. Samuel Bendet, a drone expert, noted the Ukrainians have had success using their FPV drones against Russian reconnaissance assets, and the Russians have had some success using FPV drones to harass Ukrainian heavy quadcopters. Interceptor drones have a limited range and explosive power, but are significantly cheaper than traditional air defense systems. For example, an interceptor drone costs between $2,000 and $4,000, while an air defense missile can cost hundreds of thousands. This frees up expensive systems to fight aircraft and missiles. But the operators of such drones face high risks. One Ukrainian pilot said he operates near the front lines, where he is a priority target for the Russians. He added that the interceptor drones are used up to 5 times a week, but Ukraine needs more of these systems. Ukrainian companies are working on new models of FPV drones to intercept Russian systems such as the Orlan or the Shahed attack drones. Valery Romanenko, a former air defense officer, noted that current drones are effective at shooting down slow reconnaissance UAVs, but Ukraine needs faster models to combat attack drones. The Sting drone, being developed by Operation Wild Hornets, is intended to be such a tool, but its development is still ongoing. Retired Major General Mick Ryan believes the tactic will have implications in future conflicts. This trend will continue unless there is a breakthrough in low-cost counter-drone systems, and we don't see that. Advances in technology continue to change the nature of warfare, providing new opportunities and challenges.